Hi, welcome to another session of our webinar series on data and research. In our previous webinars, we've reviewed the auto survey report function in different survey tools, such as Qualtrics, Outcomer, Google Form. The focus was on quantitative analysis, and we also noted that we need to work outside of these softwares for a more comprehensive group and group difference analysis, which is more quantitative, and also qualitative analysis. That's what we're going to focus on today. So a quick reminder, if you find anything valuable in this video, give it a thumbs up so that I can create more videos like this in the future. All right, let's talk about the agenda for today. As we've said, I'll first share how to use the raw data, which is you have to work beyond those Google Form or those softwares. So to analysis the answer for group difference analysis. In other words, building some cross tables. And then we'll dive into qualitative analysis using those raw comments. And I'll share some templates and talk about some tips about how to add a summary of each section of the survey findings and create some narration of your findings so that the report is more comprehensible for audiences. So the first section is let's talk about building cross tables. This is what I mean by cross tables, which is combining two survey questions to see the percentages of each combination. So the R code is shown on the right side, and let me walk you through it line by line. So the first line here is all about loading our survey data into R. So we're using the read CSV function to read a CSV file, or if you downloaded your raw data as an Excel file, you can use read Excel. So the file name we downloaded, which contains the raw survey data, is called survey export.csv, and we store it. After we read, using R to read this file, we store it in the variable name called raw. This is the starting point of our analysis. In the next several line, which is like the second line to the fifth line, we're cleaning up the data a bit. We're renaming two columns for ease of use. So how often do you think we should meet? That's the first question. And we rename it to frequency. And the other one, how long should we meet, becomes length. So that's just for easier use later when we want to find those two survey questions. We just use a shorter name. So we then, on the fifth line, we then select only those two columns from all the raw data. We only care about those two survey questions. So we're going to select them. And then all those resulting kind of two column of data is saved into this variable named df, which is a data frame, so df. That's how, kind of by convention, how we name the variables, a data set especially. So the last block of code is where the magic happens. So we group our data by frequency and length. So which is like this line, group by. This function is very handy when we want to group our data by several different variables. In this case, it's frequency and length. So we count the occurrences using this summarize function, and then we calculate the percentages. Percentages is showing in the percentage format. And then this is calculated by just using the count from the summarizing line and divided by the sum of all the counts. And then we want the percentage to just show no digit points. So the decimal point, we would like to ignore it in this case. And then we remove this count because we just care about this percentage as our result. So the last few kind of line here is just to format the results for a cleaner presentation. So the result is nicely formatted as a table with the percentages showing in a descending order. So this is a range is just to sort by this percentage column. And then we use this cable and cable styling function to enhance the appearance, making it more visually appealing as a table when you print it out in a, say, a PDF format. In summary, what we've just covered here is a streamlined process for loading survey data, cleaning it up a bit, and generating a well-formatted cross table that has a combination of each of the different groups of the frequency column and this length column, and calculating its percentages. So this comes in handy, I believe, especially when there isn't a cross-table function or you just want to kind of simply see what's the combination of two or even more columns together. So the code is also available on my GitHub page, which I will share the link in the video description below. And you can directly copy those codes every time you need to summarize more than one survey questions and combine several group answers from different survey questions to see like what are the percentages. Now, let's shift our focus to this qualitative analysis. Another area where the auto survey report falls short. So if you don't know what is in the first place, what is the auto survey report, what that means, there is another video before this one. So that walks you through the details and review about this auto survey report from like Google Form or Qualtrics or Alchemy, so like I said at the beginning. But now what we are going to kind of review is this comparison between quantitative versus qualitative question, just to set up kind of the definition before we begin to talk about qualitative data and how to analyze those data. So in contrast to quantitative questions, where the survey answers are finite and the data can be summarized using percentages, just like what we saw in the slide previously. So those are quantitative questions that can be summarized just using percentages, and there are just a few number of groups that's finite, while the qualitative responses are varied. It's all over the place, and they kind of lack the predetermined options because it's an open-ended question, it's a comment, and people can just put anything they want. So these may include comments or open-ended like suggestions, questions for improving certain services. That's what we usually include, one or two or a few open-ended questions at the end of the survey, just to collect some different diverse ideas. Additionally, the qualitative questions may require some summarization that's not going to be a good fit using a percentage. So they're typically presented in some textual forms to capture the variety of the different qualitative comments. So now we're clear about what I mean by qualitative data, let's see how to filter qualitative data out from all the raw data we've obtained from a survey. And the reason behind that is we just want a cleaner kind of data set we're going to work on, because qualitative analysis is a totally different approach when we want to analyze it. So we'd rather have some data set that only contains these kind of data, and we can kind of keep our mind focused when we only see the necessary data we need to see when we do a qualitative analysis. So we start by loading our survey data into R using this, again, read CSV function, and store the data, again, called raw. So this should be really familiar to you at this point, because we've done that exactly the same code for the quantitative, the group analysis and cross-table part. While starting the next few codes, they are specific for the purpose of filtering out qualitative data. So I'm using R here just because it's just more systematic, and you can just reuse your codes, just maybe edit it a bit when you know the qualitative data is starting with some other kind of the question has a certain pattern that's not already captured here. But usually it's like this. It's the qualitative questions will start with what are your suggestions? And for example, is there any suggestions? If applicable, can you share more? And some other answer that people just put in. So and please share your experience, stuff like that. So those are the common starting text of the open-ended questions, just to name a few, some example here. So the qualitative, this QUAL is the name of the qualitative data that we're going to save it to. And then the next few lines, we're just selecting the columns that likely contain open-ended response, like I just said, and we use the starts with function to filter columns starting with those specific phrases, capturing the essence of the qualitative data and the possibility of open-ended questions. So after we selected the qualitative columns and saved it as this QUAL, kind of variable name, we clean the data. We remove columns that have one less non-missing value than the total number of rows. So that's just a kind of common way to clean the data so that we don't have any like empty columns. So another way is to also use this janitor package, and there is a very handy function called remove empty. So if all the rows are empty or all the columns are empty, just remove them. That's not going to be a very useful column, isn't it? So the other one, like I said, is just to allow it to have just one NA, but if all the others are kind of usable, we will keep it. But if there's only one usable data, we are going to remove it. So in summary here, we've selected the open-ended question, we've cleaned it a bit, and lastly, we're going to save this variable into a CSV or Excel if you prefer. So save this variable which contains all the open-ended questions as different columns, cleaned it a bit so that we don't have a full empty or at least n-1 empty columns, and they may be sort of clean data, and we want to save it as a Excel or a CSV so that we can open it and just using the traditional way of a Excel to look at it. So we've covered on this slide a kind of systematic approach, if you agree, to filter and clean qualitative data from the raw survey data set. So here on the right is just a sample, a kind of sample CSV file that could be something similar to what you have if you go through the similar process like here. So it's structure of using different columns containing some qualitative questions, especially when you have a long survey. You may want to have a smaller data set that contains only the qualitative questions. So this file like this is much more organized and clean, containing only the relevant comments or like open-ended questions necessary for your qualitative analysis. So now we have the data file containing only the necessary qualitative data. The challenging part is spending time reading those comments line by line. So the summary and narration part. So before that, you really need to, like, there's no easy way to do this, especially since you typically assure our respondents that their response will be kept confidential. So that means that only people within your research team can access and analyze the raw data. In other words, you cannot use ChatGPT nowadays to perform the reading and summarization job. So I hope I'm clear. The challenging task of reading each response for each qualitative question. I do aim, although it's a challenging part, I do aim to provide you some help and assistance by offering a template that is very helpful for myself and kind of illustrate what the qualitative analysis might look like in the end. So I hope this can help. So while you are reading those comments, my suggestion is to try to note down any new ideas and, for example, like to um, summarize the other write-in questions. So this is a open-ended question, and there are only 4 parents, which is our survey responses. So this survey is sent to our parents. So there are 4 other languages the parents speak at home. So these are those other 4 languages. So this is a simple task because the narration is just 4 different other answers. There's only 2%. However, if you do have very 200 different answers, there's no easy way, as I said, to do it. So for example, if you're sending a survey to the students and one student mentioned a request for improving food diversity, so you need to write that down. So any new ideas you encounter, you write that down, then you modify the frequency description of that idea. For example, so the second time you encounter the same comment on food diversity, change that one student mentioned to 2 students mentioned. So then to several if you come across it multiple times. So the same idea applies to all the other new findings. So note them down the first time you see them and change their frequency descriptions, as I said, which is from 1 to 2 to several to a few. That's different description of the different frequencies to capture the intensity of the similar comments. So after you write up all your new findings, constantly updating the frequency, you may get something like this. So this is the whole kind of final version of the summary, but it contains different frequency descriptions. For example, 1 requested, many mentioned. So those are what you are going to update. So constantly updating the frequency of those different discoveries. And then you need to focus on the logic of the finding. So that's after you read all your comments and note down each new idea and update its frequency. Then you're going to focus on the flow of the kind of narration and summary of your finding. So you need to compile them to something like this, which is a more comprehensive summary that is logically connected. Like this one paragraph, it contains all similar idea together and it flows well. So for example, you may group findings about the same topic together, such as all comments about food services is in the first paragraph, and then all comments about academic services would be in another paragraph. So you might also determine which paragraph should come first, depending on the severity or intensity of the problem, as reflected by the like different frequency descriptions. So this is a template, and I believe it provides a logical structure and can serve as an example of how to narrate findings from the qualitative data. So again, the codes that I showed in this presentation, I will be sharing this with you by putting my GitHub link in the video description. I hope you can use them someday, whether for building the cross tables or filtering out those qualitative data. But the hard job is you do need to read each of the comments and note them down, updating those like frequency description and group similar topic together and come up with a summary that's logically connected and flows well. So That's no easy work. And what I'm sharing with you is just a template of how a summary might look like. So stay tuned as I will posting more webinar around research and data in the future. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you won't miss out. Thank you.